Welcome back to Questing Beast, I'm Ben. Today we are looking at one of the most absurd books that I've ever looked at on this channel. And I've looked at a lot of crazy fantasy and RPG books in the past. This is The Magical Code of Regulations by Christopher Frigo. And it is exactly what it sounds like. This is a solid 500-page law text describing all of the laws that are running the world of magic. And the author knows what he's talking about. The author is a former IRS auditor with a background in accounting. And let me tell you, it shows. Perhaps the best way to think about this is a world-building project that has gotten completely out of control. This book acts as an in-world artifact. You can give it to your players and pretend that this is a real book they found in their D&D world. And it is as boring and as obtuse and frustrating as you would expect it to be. But there's a lot of fun little twists and quirks inside it as well. And the more that I read it, the more that I began imagining really interesting ways that you could use this within an RPG campaign. This would also work as an amazing gift for anyone you know in the legal profession who likes D&D. I'll put a link down below. The book begins with a definition of bureaucrat. It means any person charged with the maintenance of forms, procedures, records, approvals, denials, certifications, reviews, or other such mechanisms without which civilization would immediately begin eating itself. This whole book is a love letter, I suppose, to excruciating, weaponized bureaucracy. It's the kind of thing that almost certainly would happen in any world where magic existed. Your PCs might have phenomenal cosmic power, but at some point, bureaucrats are going to be popping out of the woodwork, telling them that they have not filled out the right forms to be casting Fireball. And that's one of the ways I can immediately imagine this being used. It reminds me of some of the advice in like Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, where Gary recommends that you constantly harass your players with taxes whenever they're getting too much gold. I feel like if you have a wizard campaign, any campaign where there's lots of magic, you should definitely create some kind of extra-dimensional magic enforcement agency. Have them be as obnoxious as possible and start chasing the PCs down across dimensions. And every time they show up, they're opening up this book to one particular line telling them what rule they violated and what their fine is going to be. I feel like that's an amazing premise for a campaign because it will drive the players absolutely insane and they will want to hunt down and destroy this organization first thing they do. This book is absolutely committed to the bit in every possible way. It's all broken down in excruciating, clear detail. Every part is broken down into these smaller sections, which have subsections and sub-subsections. It's all thoroughly cross-referenced. It's all internally coherent, at least as far as I was able to tell. It is a book that relishes, I suppose, this kind of legal writing and is really leaving up to you how you're going to use this blunt instrument as part of your campaign. Reading this book in any detail is a bit of a painful process, and I'm not going to pretend that I've read it in any detail. That would be pure torture. But skimming through it and finding little bits and pieces that you can take out is actually a lot of fun. You might ask yourself, why design a book like this? And the main thing I can come up with is that it actually makes it funnier. Many of the parts of the book that made me chuckle would just not be as funny if the whole book was not so absolutely sincere. For example, one of the main laws near the front of the book is the prohibition on the use of the name David. And it goes into excruciating detail about how you are never allowed to use that under any circumstances. You can't use it as your PC name. You can't use it for an institution's name. You can't use it for a spell or an artifact. But in cases where an individual or entity has been subjected to a magical compulsion, resulting in the assignment of the name David, they may file a certain form, compelled name alteration appeal. Evidence of magical influence must accompany the appeal, which shall be reviewed by the Council of Councils. And the only explanation you get is this little historical annotation down here, where it says that it was enacted following the dissolution of the Davidic Conclave, possibly a rival group of wizards who are now absolutely anathema. So strap in while I take you on a tour through some of the crazier parts of this huge book, along with some ideas as to how you might use them. But first, a quick reminder that this month I am giving away a copy of the RPG setting The Painted Wastelands, which I reviewed recently, to one lucky subscriber to the Questing Beast newsletter. So if you're not subscribed to the newsletter already, head down to the description below and you can sign up for that. It's totally free and you get in the running for all of my giveaways. And also a quick shout out to today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Into the AM, who are launching a new range of awesome graphic tees that are perfect for any GM running sci-fi or fantasy games. Their Prime Deal Sale takes up to 60% off of the entire store, so this is the time to get the best designs at the best prices. I'm especially a big fan of all of their astronaut t-shirts, like this one for example, which is an amazing design if you happen to be running Mothership, or you could always get something like this if you're doing more classic fantasy. Both of these also glow in the dark, which I think is really fun. I can vouch for how comfortable and how sturdy these t-shirts are. So if you need to stock up for summer, head over to Into the AM right now using my link in the description below. Where you can really start harassing your players about spellcasting is in section 4, which is all about licenses and the classification of spells. Especially the section where it points out that spellcasters are not allowed to cast any spells unless they expressly declare the spell and the legal authority under which the spell is cast. And there's even a section making sure you understand that this includes Fireball. So to make sure that you're compliant, you can't just fire off Fireball. You have to first say, in accordance with 601.1 of the Magical Code of Regulations, I cast Fireball. And if you don't, wizards may show up to revoke your spellcasting license, or maybe mandate that you do some retraining and re-examination before you get that reinstalled. Now, of course, you could turn this whole premise on its head. So instead of having a bunch of bureaucrats chasing your players around, you could give this book to your players and have them use it to bother other spellcasters. I can especially see a certain type of cleric or paladin having a good time getting increasingly frustrated that people are not following the rules. Now, some parts of the laws in this book seem to be more applicable to some universes than others. For example, there is a law about how all magic has to be secret, and that's certainly not the case in a lot of D&D worlds. So you could either remove this section from the book entirely, pretend it's not there, or pretend that it's been superseded by some other law, or maybe just these wizards are trying to impose the laws of their universe on everyone else. I love how throughout the whole book, there's these little laws codifying things that you wouldn't normally think about, but would definitely be codified in a world with magic. For example, there's a section on full moon codification and time-based exceptions, right? When exactly is a full moon? What can you get away with during that time? When exactly do you have a autumn harvest exemption? And especially important for shapeshifters, there's a section on clothing requirements for citizens experiencing temporary biological transformation. Just because you've transformed into some sort of horrible monster does not mean you get to walk around naked. Got to be clear about that. It shall not constitute a defense to a violation of this section that the individual was, at the time of conduct, not technically a person or operating under instinct. This section was enacted following repeated disturbances during the Spring Festival werewolf incidents, in which multiple individuals asserted exemption from clothing requirements while transformed. But perhaps the section most relevant to your D&D characters is going to be the regulations of chosen ones, lone heroes, and other destiny-bound individuals. We get some very careful definitions of what exactly a chosen one is, what a lone hero is. For example, a lone hero is always routinely observed in the company of between 1 and 6 persistent companions, including sentient items, loyal animals, former enemies, and individuals with matching cloaks. You also know it's a lone hero when they use phrases like, I work alone, or this is my burden, or I can't afford to care, in proximity to shared supplies, lodging, or jointly executed tactical maneuvers. These chosen ones and lone hero types are, of course, extremely dangerous, so you need to be certified if you are in fact a chosen one and carry documentation with you at all times. If you're a chosen one, you need to have an unabridged copy of the prophecy that you're going to be fulfilling. You need to make sure you have a companion disclosure form, including the roles, species, and expected mortality rates of each listed companion. You also need to file prophetic activity reports no later than 15 calendar days following the end of each quarter, including fulfilled or attempted milestones, companions gained, lost, betrayed, or permanently fused, cities saved, altered, or transformed into allegories, and any notable declarations made while standing on elevated terrain. It just goes on and on and on like this. Some of it is really funny, some of it is super boring, and it's all just mixed together. For example, right after the section on lone heroes, you have the regulations on suspiciously intelligent ducks. There's a section on the regulation of dungeons as magical constructs. This could definitely be used in the player's advantage if they're going through a dungeon and it's not being properly kept up and maintained. Perhaps you could appeal to this magical council to go after the creator of the dungeon because they're not following the code. A super dry section on just endowments and gifts of magical assets is followed up by a section just called Please Send Help. Okay, I'm going to level with you here. This was supposed to be a serious section about emergency protocols for financial auditors, but at the moment I'm writing this while trapped in an infinite pocket dimension created by a particularly vindictive sentient ledger. Yes, that's a thing. No, it's not as fun as it sounds. As you might expect, there's a whole section on demonic contracts. Read this very carefully before you sign anything with a demon. The whole book is clearly just a very idiosyncratic, very tongue-in-cheek love letter to the legal system and to the forms and the codes that any kind of bureaucracy has to go through. I like these quotes on the back from people like Glorgon the Destroyer. An unnecessarily comprehensive and deeply inconvenient framework. Several of my long-standing plans require prior authorization. The only other RPG book out there that I've ever found that takes legal systems this deadly seriously is something like the Breach of Contract book for Mothership. I've reviewed this in the past, and basically it's a bunch of forms and contracts that you can use to get players in trouble as they're having adventures across the galaxy. And a lot of them are basically little adventure hooks as well. Magical Code of Regulations is much less gameable than Breach of Contract. It's probably best classified as a world-building artifact and as an in-world item that you can give to your players. You could use it just as a fun, quirky little thing that they find, but it could also become a big part of your campaign if you tailor things that way. Is it something that you would use in your campaign? Let me know down in the comments below. As usual, I will put links in the description where you can pick up a copy for this if you want one. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.